China. They are some of the agency's most guarded secrets. Sources now familiar with the case are saying that the former officer is suspected of funneling this information to China, and it led to the death or imprisonment of more than a dozen American informants, deeming this now one of the worst intelligence breaches in decades. Here with me now to discuss Peter Brookes, Heritage National Security Affairs Fellow, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, and former Naval Intelligence Officer, along with Paul Bonicelli, former Bush 43 Foreign Policy Advisor, former Bush 43 State Department official, and current Acton Institute Director of Programs. Peter, let me start with you here. When I read this story, it was fascinating. I had no idea this was still going on. You know, it's like, and then the amount of deaths, 18, perhaps 20 informants in prison or killed. How did he pull this off, possibly?
Well, it's not quite clear at this point, Charles. I mean, my sense is that because of his access into intelligence operations, he was able to take specific information that he was knowledgeable of and potentially share with the Chinese. Now, Charles, it's important to note at this point he's not been charged with espionage, to my knowledge. The indictment charges him with having sensitive defense information. So they may not be able to put together a case that leads to espionage, but if the inferences that we've seen in the reporting are correct, he could have shared this information with the Chinese intelligence services that led to the breakdown of the intelligence network and the detention and death of Chinese assets.
Paul, considering China's nuclear ambitions, global ambitions, man-made, man-built islands, and now they're fortifying them with military assets, how potentially dangerous could this situation be for us?
I think pretty dangerous. I mean, you know, this is an example of the Chinese doing a better job than we've been doing over the last few years with intelligence. You know, they've got Peter's information, they've got my information. Anybody worked for the government for years, they have it. This is another victory, and I can't help but wonder. I mean, Leon Panetta was in charge of the CIA when this was happening, and he was probably the best of the Obama appointees there, but you do have to wonder if we were on top of things as we should. And as Peter said, it's still early in this. They may not have charged him with more simply because there's a much bigger issue out there that they're still working. And they may not have charged him with more because it's going to be hard to prove this. But either way, you know, I can't help but think politically and wonder, why are they treating him so roughly? I mean, after all he did was have secrets on his private information like Hillary and Uma did.
Okay. Notwithstanding that, though, Paul, you suggested that the different standards, I guess, for different people. Isn't there a set of best practices that will be common no matter what administration is in office? And if you see that there's a series of mishaps, that informants are going missing or turning up dead, shouldn't a yellow or red flag have been raised a lot sooner?
I think so, and I certainly defer to Peter on this, but it seems to me that something more would have been done rather than let all these years go by, because one scenario here is that he was disgruntled, he didn't like the new life that he had, maybe he wanted to stay in the CIA. He goes and he starts to decide to help the Chinese, and after they use him as much as they want, use these intelligence assets, then they start killing them off, because you wouldn't think they would kill off people that were still valuable. They probably got the value out of them and then moved on.
Peter?
Well, this is obviously very disappointing. We put tremendous trust in many government employees, and especially those who work in the intelligence community. So, but yeah, this is, you know, obviously it takes some time. I think there was a 6-year lapse between when these assets were wrapped up, according to open source reporting, and when this individual was indicted. So this takes some time to put these sort of things together, and that's not uncommon if you go back and look at cases of the 1990s as well, of Americans working with the Russians. So yeah, can be very difficult, painstaking investigative process to put together an indictment. You may have a suspicion, but put together indictments that will hold. It often takes some time, is my experience.
Yeah, and you know, since the end of the Cold War, we don't think that this is happening to the degree that it is, but probably it's happening even more considering how many nations now pose a threat to us. Gentlemen, thank you both for your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
Sure, coming up, the navies of NATO are facing more and more setbacks at sea while Russia is playing war games, displaying its weapons prowess. More details on it all when we come back.
Now available, a free catalog of the beautiful gold and silver bars and coins from the historic Royal Canadian Mint and Monex, America's trusted name in precious metals. For those who insist on the finest gold and silver products on earth with better quality, better security, and better pricing, this catalog is for you. Call Monex today for your free copy, and we'll also send you this free investor kit that will help you decide why, when, and how to buy, sell, and trade precious metals in ways